I'm just trying to articulate when you raise kids and when you don't develop certain things, it has a playground, whereas you cannot instill into me an ideology to go and hate a group of people unless that playground was already there. That's the only way I can explain this to you guys because there's not really anything written on it. Um, maybe I should do a book on this. I was like, and you don't have to have kids to understand this because we were all children, right? So when we're kids, we know how things kind of came about. And when empathy developed for different things. In fact, I was thinking about it last night. I was like, I know the development years, you're talking about it. I mean, it could be even from an infant. I don't know what's going on at that time, but my brain, I could think back as far as like 3, to 6. I was like, around that area right there is pretty much when everything's forming your personality, who you're attracted to, believe it or not. Yeah, like all that's forming before you even go into school. So nobody at the point of me going into the school can tell me what and who I'm going to be attracted to. It's just a thing that it starts happening because of something in the environment, whatever, whatever, right? There's probably still some areas there you can come to question some stuff. But I do recall, I was thinking about it last night because I was like, oh yeah, that 3 to 6, somewhere around in that age. But there was actually something that I was doing. I was like, everybody's, I won't get into the whole thing on here because it's kind of an oddball story and it's totally take this somewhere else. But the empathy thing on a thing actually developed as late as like I'd say age 9, like on some things, right? You're constantly kind of learning stuff and you're like, oh, I should not do this or whatever. Like you're not born knowing that you shouldn't steal, right? Like so basically you're getting taught like this is how life is, when you go to a grocery store, don't you, when you take something, you have to go to the cash register and you have to pay, right? You have to be taught that, right? Now, for some reason, these kids, either they know that you have to pay and then they'll go steal, or it's a thing where they stole and then they just kept doing it and they constantly got away with it, and or parents have told them, cool, steal it and we're not even going to make you take it back. You know what I mean? Like they start picking up these things. And so that can determine, how they're going to react in a situation like that. But anyway, they tell you don't steal. And then so you don't do it again, right? Okay, there's going to be these ones that keep doing it. Um, and then so then that's kind of a wired thing, right? And so anyway, they don't develop any care for like how society's working, right? Like such as like, yeah, you don't steal. You go into a store and you pay for it and you leave. No, these people start to learn to steal all the time. They just do. They just don't care because they always did it. They don't care. They start getting really criminally minded. But there's a playground. I'm trying to explain the playground because if you had the proper empathy to people and those things were already instilled, like that's very hard to just come in randomly. Like right now, somebody comes up to me, they're like, this person here and there, we're gonna go enslave them today. So are you totally down? You know what I mean? Like if randomly just like we're gonna just start doing that now. We're gonna enslave all these people with blue eyes or something. Randomly say that. Um, yeah, well, I have developed, all the proper things, and that would be absolutely absurd. And so, as you see there, something's missing, like some component. Like you would need something in order to get to that, right? Like it would just be unreal to come up to me and do that. And I should just go, yeah, sure. Now, if I was a socio, it might be like, oh, that might be kind of cool. What should we do with them? I've been needing some yard help. I don't know, some bullshit. They might start thinking, I wouldn't be such a bad idea, because they're that off kilter. Um, the against their will. We're talking against their will. We're not talking about any of the outer regions of things here. Things against your will, slavery generally. So with that in mind, I was like, yeah, it didn't. Nobody could just come into our home as a kid and just go, we hate black people. It would be absurd because, like I was saying, in our family, I don't want to go into the, oh, we have black friend thing, but it's actually important because there was a development there to where they were humanized in my life, right? As a kid. So they weren't degraded, they were not absent, and I didn't have now I'm sure everybody was racist at the time because there was a lot of language and stuff. So as they're talking about women still today, like this language, right? We know our language. So that language, the ignorant part was probably everywhere. But they got humanized, and that's kind of important to note in this thing because a lot of these people did not humanize people of color. They did not humanize women. Now, who did they not humanize first, though? This is the thing here, and this is why I'm trying to let people comprehend this, because if you don't comprehend like what I'm trying to say, then they're gonna get mad. Everybody's gonna get mad. Okay? So at the beginning, they did not humanize women. So the playground was there. It left it open to be able to treat other people like shit. That's important to note. But also I could point out, because it's a branch off of that thing right there, if they even were capable, the word is capable. I don't know what's capable. I do not think that's capable to eliminate racism without tackling the woman issue first. What's going to happen? Let's just say they do. Let's say it's a hypothetical that everybody stops being racist, right? What is going to happen here? The underlying thing of them trashing women all day, raping women, enslaving women, controlling their bodies. Black women are still screwed. I'm sorry. That's the actual way that this is going. It doesn't make sense. So if you only go, and another thing, you would have to take it that all these mass shootings are for against people of color. No. We're looking at it as a whole. Like if that was the only problem, if it was the only that, then yeah, then you go at that. It's not. And as you see, also the type of people doing it. Is it women doing it? No. The one case that came up, there was like one. I was like one in the past however long. Was interesting because it was that Christian authoritarian family bullshit and everybody talking anti-LGBTQ, right? Which comes from that doctrine that teaches you to dehumanize women. So, for some reason, maybe in that family there, for it being, this outlier of everything, you know what I mean? Like the thing about it where it may have been a combination of the abuses through the church of constantly the teaching that gets us in and something, and then maybe home abuse, and then that depression thing came, and then they're a sociopath and they have this narcissist thing to go and do some bullshit like that. They have something going on where they hate so some of it could be that they're blaming, we're going to make sense of it, that they're blaming the group of people there for causing their pain. Now, is there actually some basis for that, though? Not to go and do the shooting, but the basis for blaming that group of people for it. In that instance there, if it had anything to do with that, yes, because they've been running around with their hate speech on LGBTQ constantly and transgenders and whatever, right? So that one was an interesting one. It's not a common one in this entire thing right here, right? But of course, you know what I mean? The people, the Christians here, want to really bring only the one thing that was like that up. It was also unusual because women generally don't do that because, as you see, we're dehumanized. We're not actually taught to be, we're not typically taught to go out and be violent and that we're above everybody. We didn't have the narcissistic part of being all powerful. There's this other thing that they were taught for men versus women, right? We're taught to be underneath them and submit to them and whatever in their ideology that they're teaching, right? And they're also teaching racism. So the racism part comes in, right? So this was not in our growing up. So it's kind of important to note that. So I was kind of like analyzing this, like, I'll spend way too much time about it. But somebody's got to do it, right? Some of the great thinkers, you know what I mean? But you might pull out something where you finally start to understand something. It's a lot of thinking. These people don't think. They don't think. So I'm doing a lot of the thinking for you. So that was present. We had they got humanized. They're human beings. They're like second family to me. So I wouldn't have this hatred towards a group of people, you know. And also I got lucky in that we had several LGBTQ in our family and somebody else's family. We were not taught to hate them. Now, it's kind of weird because they were not really allowed to, you know, blurt it out to everybody in the world, you know, that bullshit. But within our family unit, or like when we went to, you know, private parties, you know, for Christmas or whatever, and the two gay guys cooked, everybody knew, but nobody was out there going, I mean, they're like, this is his boyfriend. And then you didn't say much else about it. You know what I mean? Like, it was like that thing, but it was totally obvious. And no, it was very accepted. So I'm like, thank God I didn't have these fundy parents. I mean, my parents are terrible. They're terrible, but we didn't have these fundamentalist parents, right? I don't even want to call them fundamentalists. They were like the average Christian family. You know, those type of people. And these people were, the second family went to church too. But our church they went there and it was just a thing like you just didn't talk about it. And I don't recall my church ever going on this whole thing about gays are going to hell. So I got lucky. I'm just saying this. I got lucky because I don't think that was the norm. And because of that, that wasn't developed, right? Like you see that, right? Healthy environment as far as like those things were there. And then I had to go help old people, you know, when they were slowly dying and, you know, as a kid. And then I had to go help the less fortunate, you know, all these things. And you may not yet build maybe the proper empathy yet for those groups, like, because you don't really comprehend, you know, it's a slow process. I was like thinking about it. I was like, yeah, all the way up until maybe 8, 9. And then after that, it was sort of like here, there, these other things maybe. But for the most part, I'd say like the majority of things were in that earlier portion. And then the later portion was just on other weird things in life. Just oddball things. I don't even want to get into it here, but just some other oddball things. And then it just developed, like it developed. And then all of a sudden, you know, you start acting differently. Like, oh, you know, that actually, you know, those people are human or something, you know, whatever. And then, and then I'd say it would be like these little pieces of things, like by the age of, because like junior high was a hot mess, dude. That one, I was like, when you get to that point though, there was a lot of crap. I think it's just because there's other things in life coming at you and you don't know how to deal with it yet and how you should deal with it. And maybe you shouldn't be so pathy with your friends. You know what I mean? Everyone. It wasn't just me. I think it's just a normal process that you're going through as a kid. And then by high school, I remember like some of that died out, right? Like I wouldn't act, you know, and run around, you know, like there were some actions there that I was like, a little problematic there. And it could have been a major problem if I kept doing those things, right? But for some reason, at some point, that starts to fade out. That gets out of your system. You're like, yeah, we shouldn't do that stuff or, whatever. And then by, mm, I'd say after this horrific event that I always talk about, around that 19 age, I know, like, I had some issues, like, just some other issues that I wasn't even, like, I wasn't aware, like, I wasn't self aware of, and then just all of a sudden, chuck a cheeseburger at somebody, right? Like, that bullshit. I hate that story. But I'm talking about it because it's kind of like this weird thing where, like, if I was a socio, like, if I didn't develop all these other things, okay, these other things, there would not have been a voice in my head to say, you're being a bad human today and actually give a shit, right? That's something that's missing from these people. And it was already there in my foundation. And I think about it and I'm like, God, that's scary because, like, I could have just been totally pathy person. I'm just like running around chucking shit at people and I'm like, yeah, and this whole type of, yeah, I'd be in jail. Um, and I should have gotten in trouble for that. I was like, I'm in trouble for it still today in my brain, okay? But I'm just saying it was actually there's a learning thing from this because it's telling me a lot of things because it's like that action there is very pathy, right? So it's something that like a sociopath would totally do. It's like impulsive and being criminal and being this and you're acting out, right? Everybody has done this at some point, and so I'm just trying to point it out. But the thing that's different, that differentiates us in a lot of ways, is that inner voice thing there. They don't have guilt for that. Like, in fact, they wouldn't even well, of course, they wouldn't bring it up now because it makes them look bad. Unless they want to brag about it, then they might be like, fuck those people. I chuck shit at them all the time. You know what I mean? Like, they do some braggart thing like that. But I have horrible guilt. And that's not there either with them, right? So they don't have that guilt. They don't have that inner voice like you're being a bad human for the most part. Because if they were, then maybe that's some of their inner wars with any of them. But they are quite manipulators and pathological liars. So them telling anybody anything of how they actually really are inside, because actually inside, if they were sitting there thinking like, I wish I killed them, like they're not gonna. Most of them would not probably vocalize that, but some might. Who knows? Nobody wanted to kill anybody, so I was like, then yeah. So that was a thing there, and I was looking at that, and I was like, that's a thing that's missing because that's a thing that got me to not do it again, right? So I had a couple other issues that we're not going to get into, but a couple other issues, and I was really struggling. Like I was like, yeah, no, that's not a good person. We gotta work with this. We gotta stop doing this. And I noticed it was kind of weird because it's like so automatic that it's almost like the eating disorder thing, right? Where it's like you have it, but then to try to stop it and like really want to stop it, it's kind of a struggle, right? It's probably the same thing as an addiction thing where like you had an addiction problem and you do and you want to stop and you're trying to fight this thing inside to overcome it. It's a lot of work, right? So this is the same thing with that type of shit when you're going through um trying to be more healthy from the child abuse, right? But again, I had those tools instilled in me, so I already know like this is not a good person, and I have proper emotion to know this is bad and I need to stop this. And then, but I don't, you're trying to figure out the tools how to do it because they didn't have this was a area back then that you didn't talk about child abuse, you didn't talk about any of that stuff, and I was trying to figure out like why I'm doing all this stuff, right? It was kind of, I don't know. But anyway, it was from those things, and then eventually, I overcome those things, and that went long later though, like the some of those issues, right? So it's a lifelong process, right? So then now it's just a matter of um deconstructing the abuse and then constantly fixing that, right? So for me to look at a sociopath, like I understand the sociopath, they branch off from where we were. Like we're technically like when you look at like child abuse and all that stuff, they're side by side in the sense that we all have the similar things happen. It's just that those people didn't develop properly. Like they didn't develop the proper things. And whatever's going on in their head is completely different. Like whereas I have the healthy voice telling me this and I feel really bad if I like hurt somebody, they don't. And yet we could have the same experiences. So that's why I was saying that Kevin and the other thing was interesting because it's the same house, you know, and possibly the same abuses, and one had this and the other did not. You know, so understanding, I think it's important to understand that foundation because that foundation is the ground where racism can grow out of, right? Because a healthy minded person is not gonna sit there and go, yeah, let's go enslave some humans today against their will, and they're trash humans and I'm above them. Like it doesn't happen that way. It just can't. Like it wouldn't happen properly in a healthy minded person. And that was the problem with it because I was like, where the hell how did that happen? Like there's something that had to be there in order for that to happen. And the most obvious thing, which it was like, duh, oh, is how they already taught people to dehumanize women. That was the playground to where that was an easy input. Like it was, I don't know, it was just kind of this major duh thing. And then because when you notice when they targeted people of color, they were always targeting women. They were already enslaved by men anyway, and white men or whatever, and they were controlling every aspect of them. And at no time is there any consent, like none. You go through the history of America, no consent, like none. They're just raping everybody. They wanted raping children, and then they were indoctrinating them into this bullshit. They were abusing them to shit. So then they created these monsters because of the abuse. So all these mental health issues and all these things, and why there's so many damn socios is because of that. And they don't want to tackle it. And then they started indoctrinating kids with racism. That was on top of it, right? So but the playground, it had to have this thing, and I was like, what? Okay. So yeah, because everybody at home had a slave wife. So why would it, they're indoctrinating that they're indoctrinating that a set of humans has no agency. Two children, you can enslave people like that. Yeah. So then they did these horrible crimes on them, right? We're not denying any of that. I'm talking about the actual stem root of how that even all came out. It's horrible. But it's not as you might think. That's why I'm saying, I go, it's not a thing where somebody just woke up and they're like, we're gonna teach our kids to hate people of color. It didn't even just go like that, because you kind of need like this this thing to it. And they wouldn't have done that without the female portion anyway. And we could prove that the female portion was there long before stuff. Just even from the Bible thing, when was that written? America wasn't even here yet. So they did that from that. And these are kind of these branch off things. And then they did these horrible things to them. So regardless of the inner history of any of the other stuff, it doesn't really matter. It's just we're looking at that main root where you want to tackle it down, because you don't want a playground. You don't want people having a brain of a playground to be able to do that to humans to begin with. Like it's created. And I'm trying to get into the deeper part of how that's created in the brain, because the way that they're dehumanizing women, right? So just as an example, so just as like you don't instill or help a kid like get empathy, right? Um Vice versa, you're instilling in a kid how to be a monster and dehumanize a group of people, and if they die, or you would do things that you don't care about how they feel, right? like that they're living beings, right? And you know, talking this way to them is very harmful and can have mental health repercussion, you know what I mean, those things, or killing them, like they've killed us all, right? And you don't want that there. You want empathy there, you don't want that there. But they instilled that. It's hard to explain, but I hope you guys can get this. They instilled that concept of being a sociopath, like basically, like this is an object, and we can degrade that object and we can kill that object. It doesn't matter. They're garbage. We can toss them. They instilled that. That was the component. Like, I'm looking for these things because there's no way some guy come up to me, we're gonna go now enslave these people today. Like, you couldn't come up to me and go, you know, your little friend over there, we're gonna start treating them like shit. It's like randomly. There's some kids that might go down. I mean, might be with that because there's some shitty ass kids. But I would have questioned that. I was like, why would I be treating my friend like crap like that? It's not right. Because I was already instilled with something. I wasn't instilled with that bullshit right there. It is absolutely preventable. Try to compare the brain framing, the way that, okay, so the why they can't be fixed. Okay, so the way that they think, I think they try to compare it to like an addict's brain, almost like in that way. And I would say, I because I'm not one, I can't exactly tell you, but I think that's kind of the thing right there. It's like it's a hardwired thing. It's like, but I don't know how long is it fixable as a kid because they never tackled it. And so I'm just trying to bring it forward to the people see that they're everywhere. They're everywhere. It's not even a thing. Oh, they're masking. I don't know where they all are. You know, because some are masking. But I mean, being characters. But some do want to be better. Let's put it that way. Some are not as way out there like this other guy. Like I said, they're all individuals. So, you know, I think there's a lot unknown about it. And I think that the way they're viewing it is wrong. They didn't really touch on the rich ones, and they mentioned that they exist, but they didn't touch on their aspects, like things that they would do, the crimes that they do. You could pretty much figure the crimes that they do. They steal from humanity. They lie to us. They rip us off all the time. They fake present in the public that, you know, they're doing all this stuff and then never do it. They're criminals. They're corrupt. Let's see. They'll do money schemes. They do more sophisticated money schemes than someone on a lower level that is a dropout, right? Like they wouldn't do street crime. I mean, they might do street crime, but I mean, they would do something like at a corporate business and steal a bunch of money, right? So the way how they do their crimes looks differently than the original definition that I don't know, I just call it OG classic, like the typical, like that's the one, but there's so much outside that. I just think any professional that says that that narcissism isn't part of it just automatically should fucking quit. You know what I mean? I don't know why it was said, but sometimes I get my information from all over the globe. So like one of the things was yesterday, it was from Australia. And they put something weird in there like failed to plan. And I'm like, shit, I'm a socio because we went to Las Vegas and I didn't book a room before we went. I just figured because there's so many rooms out there, we'll just pick somewhere. And basically, like that's saying we're a sociopath. I'm like, that doesn't, who cares? Like, that doesn't even make sense. Fail to plan? Well, you wouldn't be a danger to really anybody. Other than we got stuck with not getting a hotel room in a good place. That's irresponsible of you. You're a socio. It's like, what the fuck? Yeah, I mean, if they should have just put like some irresponsible thing generally, because I'm like, give me some context of that one, because it's just somebody we just failed the plan. I was like, no, it was we assumed that this other thing was going to happen. So I don't know. I needed some context with it. I was like, that was a new one. I actually didn't see that before associated with them. And it wouldn't just be from the single thing there, but it was just kind of funny. I was driving. I ran out of gas. Socio. I was like, oh Lord. And I wouldn't even care. Like, you know what? I wouldn't even look for that trait so much in anybody anyway, because I wouldn't find it to be, well, it wouldn't tell me if you're a socio or not. Like if you had those things, because you could have some other issues going on there. That's one of those. It's like, and even if you did have it, and that's like your worst issue, then I've whatever with you. Um, but I hate that they try to come out here and manipulate and be like, we're not a danger to everybody. It's like, no, you are, because of the structure of your brain. When the way you think, going online, and the speech that you're going on about, um, you lack you lack any fucking care to our gender, even other women that have it. Um, but like, here's the thing: like, there is a tiny portion of them where like they want, well, of course they want to look good too, so like they might try to self better self on their own, or however, so they don't, like, they don't want the worst possible outcome of something, so they might do something to fix themselves in some way just for a goal thing, right? Which, hey, if that's the only way you can get them to do it and not harm anybody or do any other thing, then good. That's about the. We can't do anything right now with that, as long as they're not like suicide bombing and shit. Doing like this crap. So yeah, those people. There's a foundation there. That's what I'm trying to explain. There's a foundation there before you even get to the point of just racist. Like, it's just the thing about it. I was like, go ahead, go after the racist thing, but women of color are just going to be screwed. That's great. Uh-huh. Why is he going for women? I'm telling you that the foundation of male supremacy, which is so crazy because the whole concept of it is about males being the dominant gender. So it means they automatically have a problem with women, right? So when you start going into white male supremacists that hate people of color and the Jews, then it means the automatic thing is women first, people of color and Jews, right? Or I don't know. I don't know if they all like some don't target whatever. You know what I mean? Their choices of groups that they go after. But just from the male supremacy portion, the main thing of it, before you even get into white, the root is women. So they're always going to target women. And then that playground's right there. That pool of sickness is right there. And then wherever they were raised or whatever, then this teaching something, learning something, then it's so easy to then go into that, because it would not happen without that, because it wouldn't make any sense. So it would just be like, huh? I mean, it just would. Think about it. Um, and male being dominant is an automatic harm to women. So that's right there. It's basically in the name. In the name. I was like, in the name. Like, that's the automatic thing. It's not woman supremacy. Like, it's not that. It means that they're being sociopaths over everybody. I mean, if you're a male supremacist, you're a sociopath. Like, there's a party that's a fucking sociopath. And it's such a narcissistic thing. It's such an automatic thing that's in that, because it's a group of men that are like, we are superior. We're the best things on earth. God put me on this earth, to fucking take, that thing. I'm gonna OCD on this topic for eternity. I want people to talk about it. I don't want to hear that person's a narcissistic bullshit again. I don't know where it came from. Maybe it's from some big YouTube channel or uh some misinformation. I don't know, but I'm seeing uh health professionals using it too. Are you dealing with a narcissist parent? I'm like, I'm pretty sure that parent is probably more than a narcissist, if that's the problem you're talking about. Uh, how did? Oh wait, you know what? I'm gonna totally take a guess, but I think that Space Kevin's brother called the dad maybe a psychopath. Let me see. Let me see. What's the sense? It doesn't matter if it's not their fault. It's sad that it didn't get stopped, but it's their fault as an adult or how they control themselves. Because they know right and wrong. That's kind of the thing about it, is that they know right and wrong, and it's just I don't give a fuck. It's that it's like, so it's not a thing to be like, oh, this poor victim. I feel bad. No. But for some reason, because they're so manipulative, they get you to want to go, oh, let me call you, you poor victim, blah, blah. Oh, you have a drug problem, oh, blah, blah. Because not all drug addicts are sociopaths, but there's a group of them that are actual sociopaths. And so they'll use their drug problem as to why, like, they went and raped a bunch of children, right? That's a sociopath. Like, that's an, I mean, you should know from that. It's like, oh, wow, the drugs. I wonder what drug that was that made you interested in kids and go rape them. That's interesting. That doesn't exist. If there was, then goddamn, they need to do a better job on this fucking drug war. But that's not. Drugs cause me to go human traffic some children. That's a sociopath. Uh, what's up for debate is like if they go steal a credit card and go get drugs, that's like a normal, that would, I mean, I'm not gonna say normal, but that's kind of an action, like if you were in desperation for your addiction, that you might do that, and it wouldn't be technically a clue in if they are or not. But human trafficking kids, yeah, that would definitely be a clue in that they are. I was saying, I go, yeah, a lot of addicts act pathy though, so it's hard to like, they just are because they're in their addiction. But because I had been around so many of them, I can actually gauge this, and I actually know which ones were and that weren't, or at least ones that for sure were, and the rest of them, there's a group of them that could say for sure no, and then there's some that it's like they didn't exhibit that, but then again they could be, and I missed, some other things, right? Oh, for sure. The ring people, those people were social, and then they're all criminal too in it, right? Like we're gonna do this big operation, and then we're gonna pin all these crimes on everybody else. Like they were terrible. It wasn't even. There were so many addicts out here, though. It was so crazy. It was like everybody was running into, and they had this like kind of network of things going on out here. It was nuts. I don't even know what the fuck. And luckily, I didn't get any of those problems, and it could have happened. I think that it's just I don't have the whatever it is that they have to get addicted to some bullshit like that. But we're not going to push it. Let's test it out. No, it just and it could be a number of reasons. It could be that I just don't think I have it, because it was funny. I was making a joke like years later. I was such a big fan of Ab Fab. I'm like, oh yeah, so we'd watch the show, and then you get your big glass of wine or whatever. Yeah, I mean, average glass of wine thing, that every other person would do. But and it's like, yeah, we're gonna get drunk every day. Like, and it's like after you watch the show, it's like I'm not drinking for like a year. I mean, I wasn't drunk or anything, but I'm just saying it's like, I wake up the next day, I'm like, man, that doesn't sound like fun. Let's go do something else. Like it's like that, right? It's like I don't have that thing. It's one of those things you could like not do it again or do it again. Doesn't, it's not a driver. It's kind of, it's not that I can't get addicted to anything, but I mean, I used to smoke, so that's an addiction. But to that type of stuff, no. I don't know why. I don't know why. I was trying to figure that out. I go, that's interesting. So they might have a different component, like something else that and you would think because my father was an alcoholic and then my grandfather was an alcoholic and then his two sons were all kinds of things. And so it's in the family, but it's in the males that I've noticed, not so much the females. So who fucking knows, you know? Because I highly doubt he would ever sit there and call his dad just a narcissist. I mean, that's just it's really minimizing what went on there. And he was a Hitler lover, so let's look at that. He's perfect. He's perfect for every fucking story I do. For a couple of reasons, because it's like they kind of hit on. Well, you get to see the whole picture, right? Then they hit on the male sexual violence too, right? So we could all relate, right? We all got this thing, and then but here it tackles that, right? So then it also deals with the sociopath in the family, and then it deals with the sociopath that came out of the family dynamic, and then the dad was also a neo-Nazi. I mean, you literally can't find a better story of this thing. And Kevin's not dumb, so he's not like that typical. He's not the typical classic old school version of the sociopath, right? And then you have the victim that I don't know if he identify I don't know how he identifies in this situation, but clearly I would not want to call him a sociopath. He might have some traits just because of the abuses, but if you're capable of going, this is bad, I'm not running around doing these things. I have a knowledge that this is really bad. I care about other people, you know, and even if it wasn't, there might be areas that weren't developed with them just because of that thing. He's not, he's not like the father where they're gonna redo the cycle and you should be concerned of him because he's gonna go shoot up a school or something, right? For some reason, Kevin, how violent he is, I'm not sure. He might be, well, he's very hands on, and I don't know him. Maybe him screaming, yelling. I think I've read that thing. I don't know if he's punched anyone. But if dad was doing those things or anybody in the family, like maybe he does, and it just hasn't been a focus, like those type of things right there. So then, yeah. So like the honesty in this is good. So unlike Paris hasn't been completely honest with her bullshit, um, the honesty is better because I don't think Paris is gonna go shoot up a school, but the honesty in the story why that occurred is excruciatingly important for these other cases, right? So it's more like that type of thing too. And also that she should realize it, you know, and because I'll tell you, and it's not me going, I'm this perfect person and these people are all the fat, you know, it wasn't anything like that. I was talking about, oh my God, these early things, and like I'm noticing this thing and that thing, and then the cuddling of the parent. It's so weird. They'll cuddle the abuser and they'll defend the abuser. Like, don't touch my mom. You know, this bullshit. And she's probably like the biggest bully out here. And so, and then, you know, Paris is a bully, you know, type of thing. But then, what I noticed yesterday, I looked up something and I go, that mom, there's something wrong with that mom, though. And it's almost like that vibe of my evil grandma in some way. And boy, oh boy, I was like, that's like the mom type over there. Actually, she was like that, but a little different. And the mom was calling somebody else a major bully for the other woman bringing up that Paris's mom like threw her kid off to, yeah. I was like, I'm not, she should be called out on that. I wouldn't cuddle that at all. Because every parent did not do that, okay? Just so everybody understands. Every parent did not do that. And to cuddle like those actions of an adult, like they should be called out. Like that has nothing to do with Paris really. Like it's not a thing that she chose or anything like that. It's like, why would you do that to begin with? And I don't think it was a, you know, It was quite a lazy choice, but also, what you don't know what's going on in the family dynamic. And so she throws out calling the other lady a bully for bringing it up. But I go, oh, no, wait. I'm questioning if the mom's a bully. And she actually might be, because just the way, some demeanor, and the fact that Paris goes and ran right in front of her to kind of like protect her, do this bullshit and be like, this whole thing. The way she's acting about it, it's weird because when I went into therapy, like my dad, same way. It's like, I'm not going to talk shit about my dad. This crap. And, defending him, like the weird thing she was doing it too, and I was like, I know, I already know, because I had to deal with this. They had to sit there and analyze me and go, why are you doing that? I was like, I actually don't, I didn't consciously know I was doing it. I didn't consciously know I was doing it, so I'll say stuff, and sometimes people get mad at it, but it's true, right? Like they did it, so I'm just pointing out what I seen. That's it. No, I'm not sitting here trying to like harm anybody or want some bad shit. You know what I mean? Like that's not. What I want to do is get that information because it's it told us the story though. That's what I'm saying. I go now. Okay, it came together. It isn't just oh, some kid just this and that. But I'm trying to figure out like why it was so many too. That was the other thing about it because I was like, they kept saying they have a hard time finding them. I go, they're every freaking where. Why are they everywhere? We have to understand the dynamic of how they're created, and then you see like, oh, it was mass abuse. Oh, and here's a good example. What happened in the 80s and the 90s? Massive church abuses, right? I mean, all the kids got abused, okay? They were sitting there letting guys raping all the kids and telling the girls it's their fault, and they didn't even use the word rape, right? They didn't use it at all. They were racist as shit. Every pathy thing you could think of, and child abuse was so bad. They were letting church people touch their kids and beat them. They were still soaping kids when I was a little kid. I was like, I don't, what the fuck? They were like shoving bars of soap down kids' mouths and all this crap. They were taking rulers and they were hitting kids. They were doing, oh my God, right? Think about this for a second. When I go back to the Trump thing, and I was saying there's a hurricane coming because the abuses that happened in that period and the ideology they're telling their kid right there and they're abusing their kid is going to pop out somewhere in their mid-teens, maybe, if not sooner, to into their 20s and 30s, right? So you're going to get this stream of these sociopaths that are going to start shooting up the place and doing these other things in about, I was like gauging, maybe about 10 to 20 years, okay? And we don't know what the progression is going to be from that point. Hindsight. Go back, what I just said, from the 80s and the 90s. When did that other shooting start? That main one that came up where everybody's like, oh my God, that thing? I believe it was in 1999. And actually, if we want to get really specific here, this is what I'm saying. When you go into these things, you're going to kind of miss it if you really start really focusing in on each of the groups that they're targeting per se, because more of the actions and the person itself and what's going on here. But okay, so Eric and Dylan did this bullshit April 1999, right? So how old are these two idiots? 20th, age 18 and 17. Why don't they just put age 17 and 18? I don't know. They put them on backwards. Okay. So let's go back. Let's do some math. So they were born September 11th, 1981. They went April 9th, 1981. Alright, so they go into their formative years. Guess when? During that freaking fundamentalist fucking hellhole of a time. Child abuse, everything portion of America. You know, the satanic cults, the fucking church. Oh God, it's terrible. So in 1981, right? So they would have been, okay, so it'd be 82, 83, 84. So anywhere in that period right there from 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, like in that portion there, right? And it was bad. When I was in school, like I said, that was my junior high. I was like, oh no. So those abuses occurred right there, right? So then you see the lax thing, right? I'm trying to use this as an example so you can see where this is going to happen. I was like, I could see it right now. And then all of a sudden, boom, catapult. Then they go and shoot up the place, right? That was a really bad time, actually, in the 80s right there. There's a lot of people out here that were not even born then. There were schools, literal schools, blaming little girls getting raped at school and forcing them to have babies. And telling all these boys here, you can go rape everybody, you need to submit to them, and you need to stay home and have children. We're going to marry your little kids off to these adult men for raping you. All that shit. Massive, massive child abuse. See, now it's more explainable. I couldn't explain this back in fucking 10 years ago, right? 10 years ago, I was just like, there's something wrong with your boys. I don't know what the fuck, dude. Like, what is this, you know? It's all your men. It's all your men. Women did it. I'm like, you show me where some women be doing all this. This ain't happening. Were they targeting people of color here? No. They said, there were different reports. Some say hers and then were unpopular. And once they were upperclassmen and frequent targets of bullying, while others said they were not near the bottom of the school's hierarchy. Yeah, they weren't. Here's the thing with the bullying thing. Okay. I think that I don't know if I'd say every kid, but most kids, they probably had like some type of bullying. However, when you're a victim of the bullying, typically it wouldn't turn into like, I'm going to go and kill everybody at my school. It would have to be, I mean, it would have to be already an off-kilter person to go and do some bullshit like that. But it's just kind of the general way how, like, boys were treating well, it was everybody. But I was heavily bullied, right? So why didn't I want to go shoot up my school? It just wasn't there, right? I flipped them up. I was like, I did that. But it wasn't a thing where I hated everybody in my school or something, you know? And it's like, I don't have that thing to want to, randomly harm people, you know what I mean? Like, that's kind of their thing, because they're kind of generically like, they're just objects. I don't care. We're just gonna F this. Okay, so this was important. So Columbine High School was known to have an intense jock culture, which was popular. Students, many athletes benefit from special treatment from faculty and other students. But this jock culture, they shouldn't call it jock culture. Okay, so the thing is, they have this male supremacist culture that was going on, that's still going on, still ongoing. And there we go. The FBI, it has like the FBI of psychopaths as well. See, the FBI is so unreal. Okay, so FBI is off raping women, targeting women all day, doesn't give a shit about women at all, is going to be the one to tell us how these get. Okay, and I'm just saying, there's a disconnect with this, right? Where it's like they're the ones that are the problem, and they're like, we need to target this problem. We need to do, you know, and it's just like, we're not going to admit that we're a bunch of male supremacists that actually instilled this in our kids, right? So what's important to note, probably in this story, which I didn't get into the parental portion, is the parents, right? And their Christian ideology. Because what they say, and there's a debate on psychopath and sociopath, and they want to call him psychopath, but he's probably just a sociopath. But anyway, regardless of those two damn terms, concluded that Harris was a psychopath, right? And so it doesn't matter, right? So their thinking is, as I'm saying, like, it doesn't, they hate everyone. They hate everyone. So if they want to affiliate with, whatever group of people, they're going to go, oh, I hate these people. They're looking for something. But they said who exhibited narcissistic traits, right? That narcissistic part is literally like an automatic thing in all this stuff. That's why I'm like, I don't know where anybody's saying it would ever be separate. It's just there. It's fucking there, dude. Some have it more than others. And just to call him a narcissist would be ridiculous. So then it says unconstrained aggression and lack of empathy, which is all part of being a sociopath, right? You did not develop that because of the male supremacist ideology, because to develop that was to mean that your boys are going to be little sissies. And to be a woman is the worst thing in the world to them. And so the dads were teaching their kids this. And this is why this is so dangerous. Like, I could literally explain this now. Like, it was, like, I'm telling you. Back then, I was just like, what the hell? They're sociopath. But you don't know why, right? Like, it's just like, why the fuck is this going on? So, all these traits that they're saying, it's just part of the umbrella of this thing. And they go, while Keeble was concluded to be angry depressive with a vengeful attitude towards individuals who he believed have mistreated him. However, neither of those two were formally diagnosed. Who cares? It's like none of y'all are fucking. The FBI need to be diagnosed, okay? So I'm telling you, the public, why this has gone totally fucking off kilter and nobody's even picking them out. I'm like, or why it even happened, right? Because I was like, I have the answer now. At least I believe I do. I wouldn't be so confident if I felt like I needed more information on it, because I was like, I don't really feel that I do, because I already know what happened in the 80s, because I was just a little just a little older than these guys, right? And so I was like, yes, and it was horrific, right? And I go, I could totally see it because it was so atrocious when I went through school and how the kids were being, but the kids were being that way because of their trashy ass Christian parents and the ideology that was being taught at home. Because all these boys were raping kids, they were out of control, and then we got a motley crew, right? So that's exactly the thing right there, right? So they will destroy property, they will do all kinds of things, right? And not all of them are going to be out tearing up houses and stuff, but that was kind of like some aspects of some of them. The thing and that's what unites them, right? So the other one's not a sociopath. Well, he's probably also a what to say about him? Angry, depressive, with vengeful attitudes towards individuals he believed mistreated him. Okay, that's almost like a unconclusive thing. He could be a sociopath too, just on a lesser scale. But it also angry, depressive. I was like, angry, depressive. Um, that, well, see, that, like, it's kind of strange. So yeah, he's like a violent type of thing. So if you put him with a psychopath, some sociopath, we're calling him a sociopath, because that, I think, I honestly, something's off on some of this. So the thing with those two, right? So they're gonna unite. That's why I said they unite very easily with everyone, because everybody has these ideologies of being a shitty human being. And so if you're blaming, maybe they did mistreat him, right? But that's just individuals, right? Why would you just go in and just harm everybody if you're like just mad at a couple individuals, right? So, but he was able to get talked into, I guess, from the psychopath, right? Like, this is a good idea, right? Because they're typically I'm like, it's more like me. No, I was like, no, where you're like trying to orchestrate this thing, and it sounds like a good idea because we both have, just want to do some shit, right? And he's probably manipulating. Actually, it's kind of scary. He probably manipulated Keeble there because of the other portions here, right? So if they want to go by the terms, whatever they want to do here, they mastermind things, And they tend to be the ones to not get as busted, right? Like the Keith Rainiers, the fucking Charles Mansons, the fucking, Chad Daybells, those type of guys where they're orchestrating the conduct, right? So, and it could be over nothing. Like they just want to cause hell today, right? That's it. Like, honestly, like their brains are like that. They're just like, you know what? I just fucking, let's just do this. And we could be really famous and we're just gonna die, like, he has no empathy. It was not developed. There's a reason it wasn't developed. So he doesn't care. It has no feeling. Like you're not sitting there going, oh, these poor kids. What if I kill somebody I like? He doesn't like anybody. That's what happened on this other shooting. It's not only just like, okay, I hate black people. It's like the person has no empathy towards anybody. Why they fixate on a group of people, it could be more for the reasons like the guy they came up and here, the other one, Keebold or whatever, where I don't know, something happened. It depends. It depends what happened there. I mean, I could give an example. Like, did he go to a school where there was a lot of people of color and he got bullied by a bunch of them, and then somehow decided he doesn't like all of them? It could be a thing like that. It could be as ridiculous as that. Or it could be because it's just the ideology at home where mom's constantly being a goddamn racist, and then he just constantly has to hate on him, and then that thing. But it wasn't just that group of people though. Like you're coming in there with a fucking swastika, and he's shooting women. So you're talking about this cluster of things. It doesn't matter if like the group of people just happen to be white. Are we saying this is a white hate crime here? You know what I mean? Like if you really get down into it, but we can explain a little bit. So watch what they did here though. I was trying to go back to this. They go, however, neither Harris nor Keebold were formally diagnosed. Okay, we don't care. So the conclusion is often debated. I'm not debating nothing. I actually have figured this out, I believe. I don't think I've ever felt so confident in a thing because I don't want to look like an idiot. I don't want to sound like an idiot. But I think I've concluded that some of the stem offs, at least of this, an FBI targeting women, the ideology of treating sons, and the stem off of the psychopath thing is because of the woman thing, right? So, that's why the boys are coming out like that, because they don't want them to have that empathy. Is that not insane? But government wants that too. Government actually instills this into the military and into being law enforcement. Because to have that empathy type of thing, they think that then they're not going to go out and shoot and kill all the people on the field, right? When they're out at a war, right? They can't have all that because then they won't kill anybody. So government promotes that and creates that. And you can create that in a child, even purposely. You can create that in an adult, I guess. Or at least try to. Because then I think they're the ones that come back all totally screwed up and then they end up in the street because they weren't like born sociopaths. And then the government makes them get this mindset. It's fucking crazy. They get them into turning into a sociopath. So they'll go and fight a war and then they can't handle it. And then, then they start having these problems, right? And then there's groups of them that totally are socios. They want to go run out and murder everybody. And so it doesn't really bother them in that way. So that's the tail off. Why are they doing that? From male supremacy, because they don't want them to turn into women. And the fact that this came out of it is insane. Okay, media outlets. Okay, they were trying to go on these factors, the attacks, including bullying. Okay, so it's not bullying, right? Because they're the bullies. They're the bullies. Okay, at least the one is. The one is. The other one, hard to say because he could be a socio. Because they just kind of were like, we see these things. We associate that with the socio, the angry, depressive, that's vengeful, and to those he believed, like they're putting believed, and it's like, well, There's a lot of people that mistreat me, and that's a healthy attitude. That I'm not vengeful. Vengeful attitude. Okay, vengeful attitude. It's yeah, the vindictive thing to it. Whatever. Anyway, I would still classify him. He probably was a socio. He's just probably not on the well, he was on a scale because he went out and did this. But I think he might have actually been somewhat manipulated by the other guy because he's playing off his emotional thing because he sounds emotional, right? He's more emotional, so the sociopath can totally just like play around with that and then talk him into doing something, right? That's how you get two together. They play well together. These these ASPD son of a bitches, they're really good together. They're scary together. I hate the term antisocial because I'm like, they're fucking social as shit, dude. How do you get two people to do some shit like this? You can get and then go, charge up the fucking Capitol. Not for even good reasons, I mean, if you're gonna, I'm not even getting into that, but it was just dumb as shit. People dying for that crap. So, because Trump is the psychopath. Trump is the socio. He's the orchestrator, right? He stands back. He's like, you idiots that do this. It's kind of interesting that the psychopath totally went out with that. You know what I mean? Um, oh, yeah. So then they attribute it to mental illness. Okay, so this isn't mental illness, it's personality disorders from hell, right? There could be mental illness in it, but the stem off really is. Oh, this is pissing me out too. They're like racism. That nothing about women, right? It wouldn't be anything like that because the emotional thing that drives me nuts. Yeah, they're totally off. And then they go psychiatric medication, violence and music, movies and video games. Despite their conclusions, the exact motive for the attack remains inconclusive. Oh, I could tell you right now. The psychopath. Because okay, psychopath. Like okay, I don't want to confuse anybody, but I'm trying to like go off of their one definition of psychopath. Okay, that I'm just saying is probably a sociopath. That's just like a different. But anyway, the way that they think, certain ones. Who would I say that was similar to that? I don't know. I'll just let you guys. Okay, so the psychopath is thinking he doesn't care about life or death, right? He doesn't care about anything. He's just um what would be fucking cool today? Ooh, what if we do this big thing? I'll be famous forever. We should go into a school and shoot it up. Now, I don't know if his. Yeah, so anyway, the psychopath here is orchestrating the whole thing. And so the other guy's kind of like a pawn in his bullshit. So because he can, because they're both fucked up. And so then um, he somehow comes up with this plot because I guess, to want to be famous or whatever. He just hates everybody. That may not even just be hate. It's just, wouldn't this be cool if I go in and shoot up the place and we make the news and I'll forever be famous? That's a great way to leave Earth. Like seriously, this is their brain. I will tell you their brain. Scary, right? I was like, yeah, I think like this all the time. No, this is their fucking brain. Okay, so it's like the most I don't know. Like to me, it seems on this like low level IQ type thing sometimes, where it's just like is it their brain? It doesn't operate properly. But it's like seriously, it's like something like that. Like they don't care because they have no concept. Like they don't have feelings for other people or anybody else. Why would they care about life and death? Right? It's just like this being here is bullshit, and they may not even necessarily be suicidal. Okay, it's just that, oh, we know we're all going to die anyway, so I want to be known for something. And, and maybe they had this thing together too, like, full school fucking sucks, And the one kid may have been going on like, oh, all these kids are terrible. And then it's feeding into the psychopath's mind too, also maybe. And he just doesn't like anybody anyway. So he's like, yeah, they're all shitty, we should go in there and kill them all. This is them in their conversation, right? You could totally imagine this too if you really understand that psychopath guy. So then it's just a thing where they wanted to be, he wanted to be at least, known, in this thing. There's no real good reason. They don't have good reasons. When did they ever have a good reason for doing anything? Never. It's just stupid. It's like and he's a narcissist, right? That's always there. Like, I don't know why. That was a thing. I go, it's driving me nuts. It's there, right? And he's thinking, I want to be known. So then you see this new guy, right? The brand new guy. He's a narcissist. He's like, I want to be known. Wouldn't it be great to do it on the day of this last shooting? It didn't even necessarily need to be people of color. Because I tell you, if there was like a Jew thing there, something Jewish or some other thing that was present there, the dude would have done it too, So we're looking at the general conduct, right? And the mindset behind doing this type of thing. They all have this thing that's in common. They're a bunch of men, they're a bunch of sociopaths, right? And where did it come from? Women, that whole thing, MS Church. It's important to know this, and you need to tackle it, because if you know the fuel to this fire, wouldn't you stop it? It wasn't the guns. The guns is just an afterthought. Like, it's just like, oh, this is a perfect thing to use. Sure, nobody should have them, really. But I'm just saying, it's that everybody has them, and is everybody doing that? No. So I just hate the thought that men are a bunch of socio rapists that they can have fucking guns. I do have a problem with that. But this here, you can't predict what they're going to use in the attacks, because psychopaths, sociopaths, are tricky, because you don't know what the plot is, right? They always are plotting. They're constantly plotting, and it could be the dumbest people on earth to some of the smartest people on earth. The smarter people may plot something far more sophisticated than these ones here. This isn't very sophisticated. It's just them sitting in a room somewhere going, oh my god, okay, let's plot this thing. Okay, next year we're gonna do this pack. We're gonna do this thing. We're gonna be famous forever, dude. We're gonna be famous forever. We're gonna make the media the headlines all fucking time. We'll be known forever. Some bullshit, right? Like, they're feeding into this thing. The psychopath is feeding into this other one that's a hot mess too. It's probably another socio. Anyway, they're feeding into this thing together, and it sounds like the greatest fucking idea on earth. Like, they're totally pumping it up with some great thing about it, right? And because you wouldn't do it otherwise, right? So they're going in this thing, and that's it, because you already know who the orchestrator is. The orchestrator is the psychopath. That's why I said I go, but if you read the sociopath thing, it's the same thing, pretty much. Why are we still debating this? I was like, I just think they're